What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Engage 8 podcast. This is episode 11. I'm Zach, and here are my co-hosts, Josh and Mike. Today, we're going to be recapping Monday Night Football of week, I think it was 3, and then we're going to go over some college football and then preview some week 4. So take it away, Josh.
All right, Monday Night Football. First game here, we had Eagles at Bucks. This game kind of just showed us that maybe the Bucks offense isn't as good when they have to actually play a good defense. We saw them play the Bears and the Vikings in the first 2 weeks, so this one finally bit them. And man, that Eagles tush push is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it definitely is. Welcome back to the DeAndre Swift show. He went off for a massive game again. But that's what happens when you have that fantastic offensive line opening up holes that I can drive multiple cars through at a time. But the Buccaneers, like you said, they played an actual defense, and with Baker Mayfield, it showed his flaws. He was missing throws left and right, it felt like. But Mike Evans, he's been very consistent this year, I feel like. So that's pretty good to see.
We got our second scoregami of the week, 25-11. We didn't mention on the last podcast, but the Dolphins game, 70-10, I think,
20.
was also 70-20. Yeah, was also scoregami. So 2 scoregamis this week. Eagles offense, I feel like it didn't look as good as I was expecting to. Besides, obviously, the tush push dominating. Their offense really didn't wow me. They had a couple plays where they looked good. Devin White had a nice interception. I think Josh picked him for his decoy for the division. He's had a good start to the year. And then Jalen Carter, again, another great game, had an amazing punch-out fumble. Very impressed by him so far.
Man, the Bears would really like to have Jalen Carter right about now, huh? But yeah, I mean, I kind of feel similar to how I feel about the Cowboys with the Eagles. Offensive struggles are definitely there. I'm more concerned about the Cowboys overall than I am about the Eagles. They feel like they haven't played their best ball yet, and they're out here and they've covered 3 straight games. So I really like the Eagles overall. They're just going to keep getting better. And when DeAndre Swift's healthy, he's just such a good back. He's explosive. His vision was there last night, which it always hasn't been. But, man, shout out DeAndre Swift. He's a beast.
We could talk about the Eagles rushing attack all day, but I kind of want to look at the Bucks. If they don't have any rushing attack the entire year, I think this is going to be very similar to what we're going to see the rest of the season. If they don't get anything going on the ground, they're going to have to force Baker to throw the ball. And honestly, I wouldn't want to see that the entire year. So the Bucks, if they want to show anything that they did in the first 2 weeks, they're going to have to start running the ball a little bit better.
Definitely. They're definitely going to have to start running the ball to just get some of the pressure off Baker Mayfield. Didn't play great, but he's going against the very good Eagles defense that has looked incredible through 3 weeks. This is how most Eagles games I feel like are going to go this year. Same with the Bucks. I think their 2-game stretch might be over. It'll be interesting to see how the season goes from here for the Bucks. They can keep winning or what?
The Bucks are going to stay in any game where they're playing against bad defenses, and this was not one of those games. So, you guys ready to move on to the second Monday night game? We don't have 2 Monday nights this week, so the run has ended. But next Monday night game, Rams 16, Bengals 19. This was an absolute must-win for the Bengals, and they did. It wasn't pretty. Joe Burrow, no touchdowns, 1 pick. Joe Mixon was not great outside of the 1 big run he had for the touchdown. And then Stafford, since week 1, has not been great, to be honest. A lot of missed throws, especially in the first half last night. And I am continuing to not be super high on the Bengals. And preseason, I didn't like the Rams. They really sold me week 1, week 2. They were in it with the Niners. And then this week, I don't know. I hope Stafford gets it back together, especially when he gets cut back.
Keenan on those quarterbacks, Stafford, I feel like he got kind of unlucky with those 2 turnovers he had. One of them, I think, got tipped at the line of scrimmage, and Logan Wilson was just in the right place at the right time. But Joe Burrow, he just doesn't look healthy. He really doesn't. He's not showing that pocket mobility as much as you'd like. But when he's feeding Jamar Chase, this offense can just do so many incredible things, regardless of Joe Burrow's health. Jamar had, I think 14 or 15 targets and 12 catches for over 140 yards. That's absurd. Superstar performance.
Yeah, Jamar Chase, 12 catches, 144 yards. He had a great game. Joe Burrow, like you guys both said, he didn't really wow anybody. He definitely does look hurt. A lot of checkdowns. His accuracy really wasn't there, which has been his strength. But the Bengals, their offense definitely looked better in the second half when they were feeding Jamar Chase the ball. Struggled to get in the end zone. a big week for kickers. Evan McPherson had a great game. Obviously, Matt Gay had a great game. Except for the Saints kicker, he missed that one game winner. But great week for kickers.
You guys catch the video of the Packers fans at the
TV? Yeah. Blowing.
Yeah.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Got to. We've all been there. Not a successful most of the time, but T. Higgins has not had a great start to the season. Probably a lot because of Joe Burrow, but like you said, Zach, Jamar Chase was great last night. Logan Wilson, 2 picks, had both of the picks on Stafford. He's always a great outside linebacker. Bengals defense was promising, but like I said, the missed throws from Stafford were brutal. I do agree that his turnovers were not necessarily his biggest problem. They weren't really his fault, but he had much worse throws that were not picked off. So I don't know what to expect from either of these teams, but the Bengals, Titans next week. So that's big for them.
It definitely is. And the Titans have Jeffrey Simmons, so maybe they won't be able to let Joe Burrow sit back there just clean the entire game. But asking your quarterback who's got a hurt right calf to throw just under 50 times, it's honestly just crazy. I honestly just don't get it. But Joe Mixon, he played a solid game. He was all right. But like I said before, Jamar Chase, if they're going to have any sort of success in the coming weeks while Joe Burrow isn't 100%, you got to feed Jamar. Whether it's just hitting him on short hitch routes or just drags from the slot, you got to get him involved and just stretch out that defense, which will allow T. Higgins, to sort of get involved a lot more.
Well, and I mean, Burrow had to throw it 50 times because Joe Mixon was at 3 yards of carry. I mean, and that was with a couple big runs too. So.
Definitely, they need to get Joe Mixon involved more. Well, maybe not involved more, but they need him to get going and play better. Jamar Chase need to keep involved. I was very, very impressed with their defensive line. Obviously, the Rams don't have a great offensive line, but they dominated the Rams' offensive line. Trey Hendrickson had a great game. Their defense shocked me. Looked very good.
Hendrickson's a beast, man. Same move every time. He doesn't have much of a bag, but he's a beast. He does
DJ
what he has
Reader had
to
a
do.
great game.
Yep. Bengals defense have to continue to play well while Burrow's still hurt and while the offense has just completely disappeared. And this offense cannot completely disappear in this division. Who would have predicted that the Bengals look through 3 weeks easily the worst team in this division? I don't think it's very close. If the Ravens weren't hurt, I mean, it wouldn't even be close at all. I mean, I love the Browns. I guess the Steelers' offense is
I would say the Steelers' offense isn't
but
great
the Steelers'
at
defense
and the Browns lost
top 5.
Chubb too, so we don't know what we're going to get from Deshaun every week.
Yeah, I'm trying to hold on to what we've last seen from Deshaun. He's looked better. We'll see. But yeah, that's all I had about the 2 Monday night games. Overall, pretty low scoring, not really crazy games, but
yeah. On to college football. The big game of the week: Notre Dame, Ohio State. Ohio State last-second touchdown to win 17-14. Ryan Day, after the game, decided to call out 86-year-old Lou Holtz, talk trash about him for just supporting his Fighting Irish. Overall, it was a low-scoring game, as the score shows, but I was impressed by both teams' defenses. They both looked pretty good. I was expecting more from Sam Hartman. I kind of got what I expected from Ohio State and McCord. But I just felt like
I don't know. Continue.
You can go.
You said you were expecting more from Sam Hartman. I was expecting more players on defense for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
The 10 players on the field for the last 2 plays, completely unacceptable, especially with taking the timeouts. And to come to Ryan Day's defense a little bit, I did see the clip. Lou Holtz was coming directly at Ryan Day. Like he wasn't just talking about Ohio State. He was coming directly at Ryan Day. So I understand the frustration. It was still cringy though, for sure.
Oh yeah.
You kind of took the words right out of my mouth, Josh, with the whole 10 men on defense for the final play. They should have had one more guy in. Big fellow right where they ran the ball. They were missing it. And I bet those old linemen on that left side were just like, their eyes got real big because they didn't see anybody in front of them. And it was just felt like a walk-in, to be honest.
It was a gutsy call too. I mean, there was only 3 seconds left. It was the last play, but running the ball there is risky. Some other games.
Gutsy call. 4 seconds though. I think you can maybe throw a quick slant and have a second left.
Fade, honestly.
Or a fade and have a second left. But to run it there, I mean, Notre Dame gave it to him, but this win for Notre Dame would have been so huge for the program, for them, just all the hate they get for not being in a conference. Them overall, just their playoff chances would have been huge. And then Sam Hartman for Heisman. They win this game, even though Sam Hartman didn't play well. If they win this game, Sam Hartman's the Heisman favorite. So I think it's he might still be. I'm not sure on the odds. It's probably Caleb Williams, but
I think it's Penix right now.
oh really? Oh
yeah.
Honestly, that's pretty deserved. But yeah, overall, pretty disappointing for Notre Dame. Ohio State escapes and gets a huge win for the resume.
Yeah, Notre Dame has a chance to redeem themselves in 2 weeks, though. They got USC, and moving over to USC, Caleb Williams, 322 yards, 3 touchdowns, another great game for his Heisman candidacy, and Michael Penix for Washington, 304 yards, 4 touchdowns. Seems like those two are kind of going head-to-head for Heisman so far this year. Penn State beats Iowa 31-0 in the whiteout game, just a dominating game. Very disappointed in Iowa. They had a lot of hopes. Cade McNamara coming in to be the quarterback. Maybe they finally have a quarterback. Their offense can finally start to do something. Obviously, that did not happen today. Their offensive coordinator has a clause in his contract where they have to score at least 25 points per game and win 7 games to keep his contract next year. And 31-0 effort is not going to help that.
No, it's really sad, honestly, from Iowa. Can't score a single point. Over was 38.5, and the game ends 31-0. So that was pretty brutal overall. Penn State, though, really good. I don't respect the fact that they've gotten to the point where they make their whiteout game a game they know they can win, but they've been doing that for a couple of years now. I think it was Minnesota last season or something
like that. Yeah,
but you got to make it your biggest game.
Yeah, Drew Aller looked great again. He
Phenomenal.
Could be another sneaky Heisman guy in there.
Most definitely.
Other games this week: Florida State outlast Clemson in overtime. I thought Clemson had this game. Their kicker missed a short kick. Dabo Swinney kind of puts the blame on the kicker, like he always does with a bailout. Jordan Travis, Florida State's quarterback, didn't really impress me much. Now the receivers impressed me a lot. Keon Coleman, again, game-winning catch, basically. He was very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Dabo Swinney just – is there a more hated coach in college football than Dabo Swinney? Really. Well-deserved, too. He is just he's an absolute cornball. I have a lot of respect for him as a coach because I do think he's a very good coach. But both their losses this year, tough games against good teams. That was a game you absolutely had to win with the position they were in. And the way they played the whole game, they were the better team. But Florida State comes back and survives.
Yeah. Next game, Deion Sanders in Colorado versus Oregon. Wasn't really much of a game. The Deion Sanders bandwagon has come to a halt, 42-6. Oregon was just a better team overall. Both sides of the ball, they just dominated the trenches. Shedeur Sanders couldn't do anything. They could just run over Colorado's defense. It looked like men versus boys.
Yeah, 21.5-point underdogs, and they don't really ever make it close. I mean, it was 20.5-point underdogs. It was 21-0 really early. It's a tough look to. Have you guys seen all the clips that have come out of them, like talking shit before the game and 7 on the Oregon logo at midfield? That's pretty embarrassing to go out there and get punked like that. This would have been a shutout if Oregon was really trying to make it. And I just want to say I do support Deion Sanders. I'm a Deion Sanders fan. I'm rooting for Colorado, but everybody that's calling these other coaches weird for being obsessed with Deion Sanders, I think is insane. I think when you look at college football and the way it is, college football, especially college football coaches, I mean, same thing in basketball, really old fashioned. They don't like the flash. And you have guys especially guys like Saban and Kirby Smart, guys that have been in it for a while, veteran coaches. And when you see a guy who's former NFL star, really flashy, is talking a lot of shit, comes in, gets every recruit, is not known to be the best X's and O's coach, but he's there to recruit. Similar to, maybe not the best comparison because he's not a former player really, but John Calipari, the way that he was hated when he was getting he still is getting all the top recruits, but when he's getting all the top recruits and people don't respect him as a coach. So I completely understand why people don't respect Deion Sanders or why college coaches don't respect him. But at the end of the day, he is who he is. He's not going to change himself. And Colorado's going to win a lot of games this year. They'll be fine. Not next week, but they'll win a lot of games.
Yeah. Next week they got USC. I think the spread is already, I think it's 20.5, which after watching Oregon, I don't know what to expect with that. I do agree with what you said, though. I don't understand hating on Oregon's coach for that. And Deion Sanders even said he understood it. It's just the game. It's how it goes. Anything else to say on those games?
Yeah, I mean, just with just talking about some of those teams in their next week games. Clemson goes at Syracuse. They're 7-point favorites at Syracuse. Syracuse quarterback just runs around all game and makes a mess of things. I think that could be a sneaky upset pick. So watch for Clemson at Syracuse. And then, like you said, Mike, USC and Colorado next week. That will be a fun game. It's a noon game. So for a Pac-12 game, that's pretty interesting. But
Big noon kickoff.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it big noon kickoff?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty crazy. But yeah, big noon kickoff. Yeah, 21.5-point dogs in Colorado. Colorado's defense is really just not good. Especially like most times when you lose one player, I hate to be like, oh, like you're losing one guy. You can't blame it on that. But they are losing their best corner and their best receiver. So I think you have to take that into account in all of their games here. I think USC just runs the field on them. Caleb Williams will probably throw for like 500 yards. Maybe they come back in backdoor cover, but the defense is going to struggle.
Yeah, and Travis Hunter's already announced to be out next week. Some final scores from the week then. Utah, without Cam Rising for the 4th straight week, they beat UCLA and Chip Kelly. They beat them 14-7, not a high-scoring game, but they just keep getting the job done. LSU outlasted Arkansas 34-31 late. Very good game for whoever watched. And Washington State outlast Oregon State in a night game. Very fun game as well, 38-35. And Alabama, they struggled. They started Jalen Milroe at QB this week again. They beat Ole Miss 24-10. Also a good game. Saban beats his former coach.
I love what Utah's doing right now without Cam Rising. I mean, that's just super, super impressive. You mentioned the Washington State game. Washington State came out and they punched Oregon State in the mouth. And Oregon State's been playing really, really good football. I forgot who is Oregon State playing next week. They have a big game. Forget who it is. I had them. I know I had them on my board over here somewhere. All right, I guess I don't have one. But they're playing a big game this week somewhere.
Utah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah, Utah. So that's going to be a huge game.
Yeah.
I think Oregon State is favored at home in that game too, which is interesting. I think it's like 3.5 or something. And yeah, so that'll be a very fun game. Obviously, Oregon State has the Clemson transfer DJ Ugalele at quarterback. So Oregon State's a fun team. I was all over Oregon State. They kind of got punched in the mouth early. They're going to need their defense to show up against Utah.
Definitely.
Are
we ready for some week 4 preview?
I am. All right, moving on to week 4 preview. We're flying, man. We are flying. The Thursday night game, Lions going into Lambeau to face the Packers. I am very, very excited for this game. I hate the Packers. Everybody in the NFC North hates the Packers. So you always want to go into Lambeau and get a win. Did Montgomery and Taylor Decker look to be back, according to Dan Campbell? They are the closest guys on their way. Emmanuel Mosley may play a couple series. Probably not. He'll probably have to wait till next week coming off that long mini bye. But, yeah, I think Emmanuel Mosley coming back, when he does, is going to benefit this team so much. Immediately getting a guy to be your cornerback too. I mentioned the other day on here about how Jerry Jacobs has just been so bad. Him getting off the field with Emmanuel Mosley coming in is going to be huge for the Lions. The Lions' run offense and defense has been top of the league this year in both categories. I think that's going to be their strength. They're going to have to continue to lean on that. And it's kind of been the opposite for Green Bay. They haven't been able to stop the run, and the run game hasn't been good.
Yeah, for sure. For me, I'm kind of looking at Green Bay and their injuries, honestly, because that was a story going into last week, and they somehow pulled out that crazy win, to be honest. But Jair Alexander, he was limited today in practice on Tuesday. Bakhtiari, he got his regular veteran rest day, but I don't know where I remember seeing this, but I think they said he wasn't going to play at all on like non-actual grass the entire year.
Really?
But I don't know how real that is, but it does make a little bit of sense because it's a different feel under your feet. Rashawn Gary, I think he had 3 sacks last week, so he's gonna, if Decker is not good to go or isn't 100%, he can have a really major impact on this game. Aaron Jones limited in both Monday and today's practice, and Watson was limited today after not practicing on Monday. So I'm very interested to see if the Packers can get or even a little bit closer to full strength to face off against a Lions team who is going to be really hungry for a win in Green Bay.
Definitely. I think today Christian Watson said the plan is to play this week, so he should be back from what he has said. I think this is going to be another big game for Aiden Hutchinson. The Packers O-line is banged up. Bakhtiari's been banged up. Elton Jenkins, I think they're planning on placing him on IR very soon. So the offensive line is banged up. And then Brian Branch, can he recreate his week 3 performance against Jordan Love, who's been very good so far this year? 655 yards, 7-1 touchdown interception ratio. Keep shaking your head, Zach.
Yeah, he's huge. Brian Branch is just that guy. Has anybody seen the defensive rookie of the year odds? I have not personally. It's like it feels impossible to find some of these odds sometimes. But he should be there. He should be up there. He's had a great season so far. Like you guys said, Watson and Aaron Jones. I think they're both going to play. I think Watson might have said that Aaron Jones was going to play today as well when he was going on his little spiel. But it looks like they're both going to play. I want to note the Packers have 1 turnover through 3 games. So that's pretty crazy. The Lions are going to have to turn him over. But yeah, like you said, Hutch, I think he's going to have a great game. I just want to bring up this quick little stat to compare Hutch to a couple guys at his position in his draft class so far this season. 19 pressures and 2 sacks from Hutch, 4 pressures and 1 sack from Kayvon Thibodeau, and Trayvon Walker, 6 pressures and 1 sack. So it looks like early the Lions made the right decision. Both those guys are going to have to play better. I think I'll probably get into that as we move on and talk about their games. But I said it on here after the Lions game this past Sunday. I think the Lions are going to go into Lambeau. I think they're going to smack the Packers. I think they win by more than 1 score or more than 1 touchdown, excuse me. I know the line is 1.5 right now. That might be my favorite bet of the week. I love the Lions. They're amped up. Dan Campbell's going to be amped up. Prime time in Green Bay. We saw him end Aaron Rodgers' Green Bay career last season. And I would love to derail Jordan Love's this week.
I'm with you with that one. I got Detroit as well. I don't know if they're going to win by more than 1 touchdown, but it's definitely going to be a really good game. It all depends on who plays for the Packers and at what capacity they're getting snaps at. But Detroit, I expect Hutch to definitely do his thing, especially if Bakhtiari isn't 100% like he hasn't been really the last 4 or 5 years of his career. But it's going to rely on Jordan Love and just not turning it over against this very underrated secondary and sometimes very scary pass rush at times for Detroit.
I do have the odds for Defensive Rookie of the Year right here. Brian Branch is 4th, only behind Christian Gonzalez, Will Anderson, and Jalen Carter. So
I'm okay with that. Those are the 4 best defensive rookies right now so far.
Definitely.
Will Anderson's been really quiet, but I don't doubt that he's definitely making an impact in Houston.
He has been making an impact for sure. I mean, if you're watching the Texans games, you can see he's there. His numbers aren't crazy, but he's been there.
Yeah. This game, I don't think this game's going to be a blowout. You said the Lions are going to be amped up. I mean, the Lions ended the Packers season last year, so I think the Packers are going to be just as amped up as the Lions in a home game, another night game, prime time. I think it's going to be a closer game. I think Jordan Love's going to play all right. I don't think he'll play how he has the last 3 weeks. Both teams are banged up, but I think the Lions win a close one.
Yep, gotta get to Love. Absolutely have to get to Love. When the Lions pass rush is there, they're going to win most of their games. If it's not there, they're going to struggle. But moving on here to the London game, our first London game of the season, our first Toy Story game of the season as well. Falcons at Jaguars. Do we count this as a home game for the Jags?
Yes.
I don't think there's a difference, so I go, yeah.
I guess it is. Did I read this right, that they have 2 London games back-to-back?
Do they really? Hold on.
The Jags? I thought I saw something about that.
I assume one's a home. Oh my God, they do.
I think we play them next
week. No, it's
who do we play? We play in Germany.
You guys are Titans next week, week 5, but the Jags are they're the London game, I think, Sunday against the Bills next week.
That's just wild, but yeah,
they don't got to go nowhere.
London Jags, London Jags.
That is a massive advantage for them next week too. But we'll get to that next week. The Falcons, I'm still really high on the Falcons. They've been really good despite losing last week. Ritter has to be better, and he has to target Kyle Pitts more. And when he does target him, he can't sky it over his head like he's been doing. You've been saying, Mike, how Kyle Pitts needs to get out. He just needs to be schemed more. I feel like. I mean, like 100%. They're just wasting their number 4 overall pick. Falcons O-line was pretty bad last week. They allowed 7 sacks to the Lions. They have to be better playing against Walker and Allen. On my point earlier about Hutch and the two other players in his draft class, Hutch has really no help on his D-line so far in his career. James Houston had a lot of sacks last year, but overall, he doesn't have a ton of help. Walker gets Josh Allen, and Tibbs gets Dexter Lawrence. So just once again, it's crazy how he's dominating with no help on his D-line, but the Falcons O-line has to block.
I'm definitely looking out for a Trevor Lawrence bounce back game. I mean, who did he play last week? Why is this escaping me?
Texans.
Houston, right. So playing Houston, they definitely don't have the most talented team on paper, but they kind of rattled him a little bit. He didn't look like himself. I'm hoping he gets back to it against Atlanta, who they're definitely not going to be an easy task, but again, home game for Jacksonville, so we don't know. But if Atlanta can get Bijan going and maybe get an early lead on Jacksonville and force them into those throwing situations and maybe make Trevor Lawrence uncomfortable, it could be interesting for sure. I don't really know where to go with a pick for this one, to be honest.
I agree with that. But I wouldn't say he needs a bounce back week considering I don't think he's really had a week to bounce back from Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's looked great at all so far this year. That offense hasn't really looked great. They need to target Calvin Ridley more. We talk about the Falcons need to target Kyle Pitts. They need to target Calvin Ridley more. Back-to-back weeks where he hasn't really got the ball much. Neither team's impressed me in week 3, but the Jags, now they have to go against the tough defense with the Falcons, and their offense needs to find a rhythm sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I said the Falcons O-line has to block. The Jags O-line has to block too. That Falcons pass rush is scary, and if they get to Trevor Lawrence early and often, they could pull away here. Calvin Ridley revenge game for the Jags, first game since the whole gambling and traded incident. But like you said, Mike, the Jags just have to be better all around. They just haven't been great this season, especially with all the expectations. I know Pete Prisco had them going 13-3 and making the Super Bowl. That's looking great, Pete.
I think he said it would be a disaster if they didn't win 13 games.
Yeah, well, they're not winning 13 games.
The Jags said never.
Yeah, the Jags are underperforming, and they desperately need a big W. I think this could just be an overall huge momentum game, especially because the Falcons are a really good team. But with that being said, I'm riding with my Falcons. I only say my Falcons because I like them so much.
I got the Falcons as well. I think Bijan's going to be a little too much for the Jags defense, especially Walker and Allen on the edges. I think he's just really good, and I don't think the Jags have anybody to match that. And Ritter, I think he's going to bounce back a little bit too. I think he's going to find his targets a lot more consistently than last week against the Lions. And Trevor Lawrence hasn't given me too much to be excited about this year, like you were talking about a little bit, Mike. But if he hits Ridley and Kirk often and then feeds Ingram in the middle, and they get momentum in the pass game and put up points, it's going to be hard for Ritter to keep up with that. But Jags haven't given me too much to look at, so I got the Falcons.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I go both ways. It's hard. I don't know what the Jacksonville's stats are in London, because just them playing in London makes me want to pick them. But I just think the Falcons they've been the better team so far this year. Their defenses look better. I think this is a big bounce back week for Bijan Robinson. I got the Falcons winning it.
All right, moving on. Maybe the most anticipated game of the week. It's up there. Dolphins at Bills. This is a huge prove-it game for the Dolphins to prove that they are the number 1 team in this division, because they've shown so far that they look like it. And we talked about last week, if the Dolphins have to go to Buffalo in the cold, they don't. So it's huge that they avoided that game. So I think this is a game that they really have to win and just like set the tone for the whole division. The Dolphins are obviously coming off that 70-point win, and they need to score again to win this week. Not 70 necessarily. I mean, that would probably – I think 70 would probably do the trick in this game. But I think they need to at least get 30. The Bills are coming off 2 dominant wins against inferior teams, especially after that week 1 debacle that happened with the Zach Wilson game and the Aaron Rodgers game. But, yeah, the Bills' defense has just been really, really good.
Honestly, this is going to be a huge game for Josh Allen in particular. If he can be smart with the football, move it down the field with those long what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Those long methodical drives, be smart with the ball. If he can be careful with it and make Miami stay on the sidelines and keep them from scoring those 70 points, Buffalo's got a real shot in this game. But Miami, you said best in the division. I think they're best in the league. Their offense, they have weapons everywhere. They got three quality, well, two right now, but three once they get Jeff Wilson. They're going to have three quality backs come mid-October. They have Waddle, who didn't even play last week. They have Tyreek Hill, one of the best in the game. Tua, who's proving to be arguably the best quarterback in the league right now, which debatable. This year, it's Tua. But this is going to be such a fun game to watch, and it's going to be Tua against Josh Allen for me.
100%. This is where the Dolphins were sent home last year, and they had Skylar Thompson at quarterback, not Tua, and they still put up 31 points in that cold playoff game. This is a tough one because the Bills, the last 2 weeks, their defense especially has just looked so good. They were playing inferior opponents, but it has looked so good. I almost think home field advantage could win them this game, but like I said, the Dolphins were sent home. They have a little extra motivation, and you already have extra motivation with it being a playoff game. And their offenses look so good, and Tua didn't get a chance to play in that playoff game, so I think he's going to be ready to play next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a really fun game. Could be high scoring. The Bills have good safety, so I think that'll greatly help them with all the over-the-top stuff. Do we know Jalen Waddle? Well, it's concussion protocol, so we don't really know at all. But
yeah, we don't know yet.
But hopefully for the Dolphins, he plays. I think that will be huge. They got away with not having him last week, and I don't know if this is a game where you can get away with not having him this week. The Bills' defense has been phenomenal this year. Say what you want about the Jets, Commanders, and Raiders' offenses, but they've averaged under 10 points a game allowed so far this season. I think it was like 9.6. So I think that's huge for them. I think the Bills' defense is going to make the difference in this game, and I'm going with the Buffalo Bills at home.
I've actually got Miami. I don't know exactly why I did. I just looked at the matchup and I said, I feel like Miami has it. It might be Jalen Waddle that makes the difference, whether he plays or not, and Buffalo having home field advantage. But like you said earlier, Mike, Miami's got something to play for. They got sent home by this team before without their starting quarterback in a very close game. This could go down to the fourth quarter, maybe 13 seconds left. I know it's not Chiefs Bills, but Josh Allen he could score really quick. But it's going to be such a good game. I got Miami.
I have Buffalo. I think that their defense just might be able to slightly slow down the Dolphins offense, and the Dolphins defense isn't as good as the Bills defense. I just think the Bills squeak away. I think it's going to be a close, high-scoring game. Maybe not as high-scoring. I think the offenses are just going to take their time down the field, kind of like the Chiefs-Bills game in the playoffs a couple years ago, that great game. I could see this game kind of playing out like that, and this time the Bills end up on top.
All right, next game here, a couple of 0-3 teams, Vikings at Panthers. This is an absolute must-win for the Vikings, whether Bryce Young plays or he doesn't. The Vikings have to finish their offensive drives. So many yards for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, and not as many points as you would expect with those yards. They're playing a Panthers team in general that just hasn't been playing well. They overperformed last week against the Seahawks, but like we said, the Seahawks kind of let teams stay in it and kind of play down to their opponents. The Vikings absolutely cannot do that this week, especially on the road. And this is you cannot start 0-4 for the Vikings.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. Vikings must-win game. They cannot go 0-4, especially in a division where Detroit and Green Bay are starting to pull away, but they do play each other this week. We touched on that earlier. But going into Carolina against a team that's 0-3, and seems like they're riddled with injuries. They don't have J.C. Horn, maybe no Bryce Young, which I don't think he is playing. I think they were preparing to play without him this week. But Andy Dalton, I mean, we talked about him a little bit last week. He was putting up some solid numbers, but didn't come away with a win. If the Carolina Panthers want to have a chance, in my opinion, they're going to have to get the run game going with Miles Sanders and maybe a little Chuba Hubbard. But we don't know for sure. No one's going to be able to guard Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison or KJ Osborne. So for me, I got the Vikings and not really much else to talk about with this one.
Yeah, it's an Adam Thielen revenge game. We've talked about him on the last podcast. He's looked all right this year. He had a great game last week. I think the Vikings' weapons are just going to be too much for this Panthers secondary, like you touched on, Zach. I don't really know how they can guard Justin Jefferson. The spread for this game, I think, is 3.5 for the Vikings. I feel like that could be a trap, so I feel like it should be more. We don't know which Panthers quarterback. I think they are preparing to play with Andy Dalton, like you said, Zach. So, interesting game.
Yeah, I think Panthers defense is going to struggle, like the both of you guys said. So they're going to need to get points to win this game. The Vikings defense has performed well in spurts this season, but overall they need to play good. They cannot let Andy Dalton and Bryce Young keep the Panthers in this game at all. I think the Vikings need to go out there and they need to get a dominant win, especially on the road. I'm gonna pick the Vikings, but I don't know. I have to look back. I think I've maybe picked the Vikings every game so far, and I think then they're 0-3. So yeah, there's that.
I also got Minnesota. Said it earlier. I don't have much to talk about on this game. I mean, Vikings weapons, they're going to be too much. Kirk, he's got a chance to go out during the 1 o'clock slate and just dominate under no lights at all. So I got Minnesota.
I also have Minnesota. If they don't win this game, they might have to decide on selling quick here.
All right, moving on then. All right, moving on to the next game here. Broncos at Bears. I think it's pretty crazy that the Bears are at home and 3.5-point underdogs to another 0-3 team. I think that's pretty crazy and says a lot about the Bears. This is two teams that are desperate for wins, though. The Broncos defense needs a break after last week, and they might actually catch one this week. So we'll see. Russ needs to get right, and with time in the pocket and a bad secondary, he might be able to do that.
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think Russ looked too bad throughout the first part of the season. I mean, last game, you can point all the fingers you want because they give up 70, but honestly, a good team or at least a well-coached one realizes they got flat out embarrassed and they will come back with a vengeance. The Bears, they got embarrassed week 1. They came back, just were terrible. Kind of embarrassed week 2 with the walk-off pick 6, it felt like. Came back week 3. Got blown out, and I mean, they're not well coached. They're not a good team. I don't see them really doing anything unless Fields can just be magical and just throw the ball to DJ Moore every time. I don't see this game's going to be gross, at least for the Chicago side. Denver, I think it is every game against the Bears for any team is going to be a get right game. But for Denver, if they want to keep pace in the stacked AFC, they're going to have to win this one.
Yeah, this is a game of a stoppable force versus a movable object. Both teams have clearly not played up to what they were expecting this year. Sean Payton's Broncos just haven't been good. Matty Eberflus's Bears have been worse. The Bears' offense has been atrocious, but the Broncos' offense hasn't been great either. This is just two teams that have underperformed this year. Seems like the Bears already know their fate at this point, the way their effort levels have been. I think the Broncos, they still want to win. We saw Garrett Bowles in the post game talking about how he's tired of losing in his 7 years there. He's ready to win. I think the Broncos are just going to come out more ready than the Bears.
Yeah, I think this is it's so weird to say for the Bears, but like after last season, you run Fields into the ground, you do a ton of design runs, you risk his health, and then this year you got to come in and still run him, but you got to keep him in the pocket for as much as you can. And if Fields can't hit throws, then you just can't do that. So I think what they have to do to stay in these games is I think you just have to run Fields like crazy. I think you need hella design runs. I think I don't know. And at this point, it's like, yeah, you have the injury risk, but are the Bears that much worse with a pocket passer from Fields to whoever the hell comes in and plays backup quarterback? I don't necessarily know. Fields has backup quarterback capable passing when he sits in the pocket. So I think you have to just run Fields as much as you can to stay in games. And if he gets hurt, then oh well, you're losing anyways.
I got Denver for this one. I mean,
oh yeah, I have the Broncos as well. I forgot to say that. Yeah, I have the Broncos.
The Bears just haven't shown anything to be remotely optimistic about this year. I wish I could say that, Fields is doing all he can, but the Bears are still 0-3. No, Fields is still part of the problem, along with the offensive line, the receivers, the running backs, the coaching, play calling, all that. Like, everybody's a problem, and that's just on the offensive side of the ball. I got Denver, and there's really no reason to try and back it up.
Touching on your point, Josh, with the Fields not running the ball, we'll talk about it later, but the Ravens have kind of been doing the same thing with Lamar. So the teams with the mobile quarterbacks, the Colts were running Anthony Richardson a lot. Now, I guess he's a rookie. That might be different. But it's interesting to see these mobile teams just not using their mobile quarterbacks how they should be used, really. I also have the Broncos. I just don't see a world where the Bears so far come out energetic. Last week, they should have had every reason to come out and play hard, and they just didn't. So,
Yeah, you mentioned Richardson. I expect a similar thing, to be honest, with the Lamar and the Fields thing. They're going to run him a ton this year. When he doesn't have a ton of tread on his tires, you can afford to do that. So I bet they run him a ton this year, and I wouldn't be shocked to see them come out next year and just have him still running because you have to use his athletic talents, but probably sitting back more and making his reads. Moving on that point, we'll move on to the Rams at Colts. Stafford he's kind of looked bad, like I said earlier, after a good start in the first game against the Seahawks. The Rams defense is going to need to feast to win this game, and who knows if they could do that. They played well last week, and honestly, they played well all 3 weeks. But last week the Bengals just were pretty atrocious and squeezed out that win. But the Colts' really good front seven and overperforming young secondary is going to really give Stafford and the Rams fits. And if the Rams can't score a ton of points, I think the Colts will score a ton of points, and I think they could be in trouble.
I think this is going to be similar to what happened last week to the Rams. If the Colts front four or just pass rush in general can get pressure on Stafford and make him use those inexperienced receivers in uncomfortable spots, they're going to be able to kind of throw whatever they want at him coverage-wise. I don't expect Stafford to be able to really do much, kind of like last week. But if the Colts have Anthony Richardson, it'll be kind of a different story on the other side of the ball, too. It's going to be Aaron Donald just trying to get to whoever's at quarterback, and if it's Anthony Richardson, then he's just going to run away because he's a freak athlete. But if it's Gardner Minshew, he'll try and run away, but it's Aaron Donald, so he'll catch him. But this is such an underrated game, in my opinion, because the Rams have been playing better than expected, and so have the Colts. So this is going to be a really tough one to call for sure.
Yep, the weather in Indy, 84 and sunny, so hopefully the roof is open for the first time this year. That'll be big for the Colts if true. Some big news from the Colts today was Shane Steichen said he expects Jonathan Taylor to be off of the PUP list in a week. So we could see week 5, Jonathan Taylor may be playing for the Colts. Obviously, I'm not in there. I don't know what's going on with that. He said they'll talk about it more when he's off the list. But getting to the game, Anthony Richardson and Ryan Kelly are hopefully back next week out of concussion protocol. They desperately need both of them back against Aaron Donald and the Rams defense next week. Like you guys both kind of touched on, I think the big point in this game will be the trenches on both sides of the ball. The Colts defensive line is going to have to do what the Bengals defensive line did and get to Stafford. Otherwise, I'm worried that Stafford with Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell, who looked great last week, they could kind of carve up this young defense. Julius Brents looked good last week, but this Rams offense, if they give Stafford time, I believe, could do good things against this Colts. But the Colts defense last week blitzed on 40% of the plays. I really feel like Gus Bradley's getting a good feeling of his defense, and the defense has been overperforming by every standard that the media gave them. The defenses look great. I'm very excited to watch this game.
Yep, like you said, Mike, the defense has been blitzing a lot. I think that is a bad recipe if you're the Rams and Matthew Stafford and that O-line. I like the Colts. I have written here AR or Minshew. I like the Colts. Whatever happens, I'm going with Indianapolis at home with hopefully the roof open.
I got the Rams, actually. I think Aaron Donald's going to make a really, really big impact on the interior of that Indianapolis O-line, regardless if he's going against Quentin Nelson or I don't remember off the top of my head who they have at right guard, but it's Aaron Donald. You're not going to be able to block him or double team him every single snap. I think he's going to make a lot of impact plays on third down, regardless of who they have at quarterback. And I think Stafford's going to do enough with those receivers the week before Kupp may come back, and I think they're going to squeak out with a win.
The Colts offensive line this year, we touched on in the previews. Last year they struggled. So far this year, they've definitely been way better than they were last year. Bernard Raymond's been very impressive. But the guy who stepped up the most this year compared to last year is Will Fries. He's been incredible. He's one of the top-rated guards. Him and French on Sunday did a great job against the Ravens D-line. French Fries went off. Hopefully Ryan Kelly's back, but French showed he can get the job done if needed. I think the interior's offensive line might actually perform well against Aaron Donald. I'm very excited to see if they line up Quentin Nelson with Aaron Donald, because that would be a great matchup of one of the best guards against maybe the best defensive player in NFL history. I think this game's going to be close. The Rams' run defense is going to have to step up if they want to win this game. Zach Moss has looked great through 2 weeks. I'm going to pick the Colts, so I think the roof open. The Orca will be looking down on us for Jim Irsay's sake, and I think the Colts Rest in peace. I think Jim
It's
Irsay
Lolita,
and the
right?
Colts get it done. Yeah, something like that. Lolita. I was trying to think of the name.
Shout out Lolita.
Rest
Shout
in
out
peace.
French fries too, all time duo.
They look
Um,
good this week.
yeah, next game up here, Ravens at Browns. This division is really, really good, and the Browns may just be the best team in it. They lose Nick Chubb, which is a big problem for them, of course. But Kareem Hunt, I expect to be more involved in the offense this week. I mean, he got signed like midweek last week. But the Browns' top three defense is playing against a pretty beat up Ravens team all around. We touched on last week the long list of Ravens injuries, and they haven't gone away. So Deshaun looked pretty good in the last three quarters last week. And I think him playing a beat up defense, he could maybe look good again this week.
You really couldn't have said it better. Deshaun, he was playing really good last week. If he can build on what he did last week against what feels like a depleted Ravens defense, it'll definitely make all the difference in the world without Chubb back there. Ford and Hunt, depending on how much run they give Kareem Hunt, especially a week after signing him, I think those two can be a really solid duo, to be honest. Nothing like Chubb or anything, but it'll definitely be an interesting way to slice up the carries. But switching to the Ravens, Lamar, he's got to use his weapons. Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, they have to get involved early and often because the Browns are going to be looking at Mark Andrews the entire time. How could you not? So the Ravens they're honestly just going to have to outscore the Browns because both of these offenses are both very talented across the board. But the Browns do have a little bit of an edge on defense, just health-wise, honestly.
Yeah. I mentioned it when talking about Justin Fields. I think they need to get Lamar running the ball more, some more design runs. He didn't really have that many, and the Colts defense has notoriously been bad against mobile quarterbacks, especially Lamar. And this week they were able to contain him. The Ravens offense just needs to get it together. Zay Flowers has looked good. He's gotten a lot of targets in back-to-back weeks, but Rashad Bateman, a lot of hype on him last year. He hasn't really done much in his 2 years now with the Ravens.
He's hurt now, isn't he?
He played this week. I don't know if he got hurt or not.
I think he did get hurt at the end.
And that's what else I want to the Ravens injuries. They have so many of them, and that's going to be very important. You don't want to go against this Browns defensive line. We saw what the Colts defensive line did against them, and it wasn't pretty. This Browns defensive line could do more damage than the Colts.
Yep, exactly what you said. I think they're going to do exactly what the Colts did, if not more. The Ravens can stay in this game if they can score, but that is a huge if. I think what we've been talking about, or what you've been really saying, Mike, about the running quarterbacks not running their guys, especially in this Lamar situation where he was hurt all last year and it was a huge mystery and a contract year. I think the Ravens at this point are like, hey, we just paid you a ton of money. We're not going to put you in the position to get hurt. And I honestly really respect that decision. With that being said, I'm going with the Browns.
I also got the Browns. I just think their health on defense is going to overpower the Ravens' lack of health throughout the entire roster. Lamar, he's so talented, but like you guys have touched on, they're just not using one of his better strengths, his legs, along with other running quarterbacks in the league. But we won't talk about that anymore. It's going to be a close game, I think. But considering it is in Cleveland and the Browns are definitely healthier, I got Cleveland.
The only way I see the Ravens winning this game is just forcing Deshaun Watson into some dumb turnovers. We saw the one play he had last week that was dumb where he just threw the ball backwards. I don't know I don't think it's going to happen, though. I have the Browns winning at home against Ravens.
All right, moving on. Next game here, Steelers at Texans. It's a red-hot C.J. Stroud against a red-hot Steelers defense. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see if C.J. Stroud ends up throwing his first pick or not this week. He still has not thrown a pick through 3 games, but he's playing against an insane defense, and he'll probably be under pressure most of this game. And overall, just the Steelers offense needs to figure it out. This Texans defense isn't horrible. They're not one of the worst teams in the league, but they're not great either. So I think this is another chance for Kenny Pickett and the offense to get it right. They didn't really get it right last week against a bad defense. We'll see if we can this week.
I will say, Houston, they haven't played teams with that great of pass rushes this year outside of the Colts, where they've got Stewart and Buckner. And in that game, they lost. So honestly, compared to the Jaguars, the Steelers have a crazy pass rush. It's going to be a really tough game for CJ Stroud, especially like you talked about, keeping his slate clean with the interceptions. If he can take care of the ball against this good of a defense, I think that's great for the outcome of the game and also the outcome of CJ Stroud's development. I know we're only 3 games in and we're talking about game number 4, but he's looked really good, really poised in the pocket. He's able to re-solidify himself there when he's getting thrown off platform. He's been fantastic. He's been QB1 out of this draft so far, and I'm very excited to see what he does against this good of a front of the Steelers.
Yeah, CJ Stroud looks incredible so far this year, but as you touched on, Josh, I think he does throw his first pick this week. I think he's going to be under a lot of pressure. The offensive line is a little banged up, and I think TJ Watt will just have a field day against him like he did last week. Yeah, I just think that this defense is going to be too much for CJ Stroud to handle. And Kenny Pickett looked a little bit better last week. I think he can continue growing on that and have a solid week against the Texans.
Yeah, I like Kenny Pickett as a guy. He seems like a pretty down to earth dude. He's beloved in Pittsburgh. But I don't know. The Steelers offense just looks so poor. I mean, I was saying to my roommate who's a Steelers fan when we were watching the game before we recorded the pod Sunday night, and I feel like the Steelers just should start every single set of downs at 2nd and 7 because it's a run up the middle of the Najee for 2-3 yards every single time, and that's just not going to cut it. People are on Twitter saying Jalen Warren's a better running back. I don't agree with that. Maybe he's more explosive, but overall, Najee's just such a talented back, and he always has been. I think he gets overhated, and a lot of it's due to the Steelers O-line. Speaking of the Steelers O-line, I think this could be a really big week for Will Anderson to maybe stack up a sack or two against Kenny Pickett and this pretty bummy O-line. If the Steelers do struggle on offense versus this Texans defense, they will lose. I don't think personally that this Texans defense is that much worse than the Raiders defense, if at all. With that being said, I think the Steelers struggle on offense once again, and I'm going with the Texans at home.
I'm actually kind of on the flip side of you. I think Pittsburgh, this could be maybe a get-right game for them. I know we say that all the time on this pod, but Kenny Pickett, throughout the first 3 games, I feel like he started really slow in the first and second quarters and really picks it up timing-wise and just getting a good feel for the game come the second half. I think he might get into that a little bit earlier this game against a Houston team who's very inexperienced, it feels like, especially in the pass rush department with Will Anderson leading the charge. So I got Pittsburgh, and I just think, like you said, Mike, TJ Watt, he's going to have a field day, and it's going to be a close game, but I got Pittsburgh.
I also have Pittsburgh. I could see the Texans winning if they just don't turn the ball over, their defense plays like it did last week, but I just don't think both those things happen. I think the Steelers get the job done.
All right, moving on to the NFC South. Bucks at Saints. Jameis Winston revenge game, it looks like. The Bucks offense has looked pretty bad when they finally played a good defense, like I said earlier. They were playing pretty bad defenses to start the season, and Baker and Mike Evans and everybody was looking good. Oh, I didn't touch on when we were talking about Monday Night Football. Mike Evans had a couple drops early in the game, and then he redeemed himself and had a couple really, really sick catches. So Mike Evans kind of looks like he's still got it. He might be is he a top 10 receiver in fantasy right now? He's got to be.
He's number 5, actually.
Yeah. There we go. Shout out Mike Evans. Maybe if the Bucks start losing games, he will go on the trade block. We'll see. But the Bucks defense, I think, does keep them in this game with the Saints. They got to make Jameis make mistakes, which he can make, and we've seen him make before. I know you said, Zach, when we were talking about it last episode, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks, possibly back playing against Tampa. But Jameis, with a full week of knowing that he's the starter, I expect him to actually go out there and score against this whole team.
I mean, this feels like a conversation we would have been having in like 2019 or 2020 with Baker Mayfield and Jameis Winston being starting quarterbacks against each other. But alas, in the year of our Lord 2023, it's the Bucks and Saints, Jameis against Baker. It's going to be a really weird game, but Baker is going to be facing a really tough defense, and the Saints and Jameis, like you said, he's going to have a week with the starters. But he's facing a front that's actually pretty solid with the Bucks, with Vita Vea and Shaq Barrett, who's very underrated at this point. I feel like he doesn't get talked about too much. But like you said, Mike Evans, he's Mr. Consistent, it feels like. He's just being very good for Baker. Regardless of the drops, he's making up for it later in games if he does. And this game's going to be really close, and I really don't know what way to lean with this one.
Yeah, the Saints defense has looked great so far. So is the Bucks defense. Alvin Kamara is back from his 3-game suspension, so that's big for the Saints this week, getting him back. And I think that'll help Jameis with a dump off. Maybe it'll force him to maybe only 2 interceptions instead of 3. even if I thought the Bucs would win, I just couldn't put myself on the wrong side of a Jameis Winston-led team. I don't want to, especially in he probably will have limited starts this year. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think I'm leaning towards Jameis revenge game.
I am as well. I think, like you said, I think Alvin Kamara is going to be huge, especially with Jamal Williams going on IR this week. So pretty perfect timing for them to get Kamara back this week. The Saints defense has to continue to play well. They cannot let Baker and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Rashad White drive down the field on them. I don't think they do. I think the Saints defense plays well at home. I think maybe we see 2 touchdowns and a pick from Jameis. I think the Saints win this game.
Yeah, I got the Saints as well. I don't think Baker does well against good defenses, and the Saints have one. And Jameis, he's going to come out with a little bit of a vengeance. And like we said earlier, kind of beating a dead horse, he's got another week with the first team, and he's got some weapons with Olave and Mike Thomas, who's actually healthy. So I got New Orleans.
Yeah, I'm not going on the wrong side of a Jameis Winston revenge game. I got the Saints as well.
Beautiful. We love to see it. We are Jameis guys, or at least I am, and I know Mike is. Zach maybe not so much, but
I'm a 30-30 season guy for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, we know he's going to be doing some nice drills. Yeah, some drills on the
eating some W's.
Yes, sir. All right, Commanders at Eagles next game here. The Commanders defense has to get back on track and attack this Eagles offense. This Eagles offense has not been bad, but like we've said, they could play better, just like the Cowboys can. So the Eagles offense has to play good. They're playing a great defense this week in the Commanders, although the Commanders did end up giving up a lot of points last week, but the Bills are on fire, so it is what it is. The Commanders' run D is ranked 22nd in yards per game, and the Eagles run the ball so well. So I think that's just going to continue once again for the Eagles. I think we see maybe is this a 1 p.m. game?
I believe so, yes.
I can see this game being the first game that ends. I think there's going to be a lot of running the ball. And I think the Eagles defense is just going to give Howell fits, similar to last week.
Yeah, Howell, he's going to be facing a really tough front four and a tough defense in general. I think he's, like you said, he's going to struggle. But on the flip side, this is going to be the toughest front four that the Eagles will have faced the entire season. So I don't expect Swift to be as dominant as he's been the last couple games. So they might be relying on Hurts's arm, which is kind of reliable, to be honest. So I don't have too much worry with that. It'll definitely be how Sam Howell reacts to the adversity of being absolutely humiliated last week and going up against another really good defense. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out for sure.
Yeah, I think the Commanders are going to need a masterclass offensive script from Bieniemy in order to win this game. They gave up 9 sacks and 4 picks to the Bills. I think the Eagles' defense is better than the Bills. It's just another tough defense for the Eagles offense to go against, though. They've looked all right so far. Like I said earlier, they haven't looked great, but I think the Eagles offense is just too much to handle. They get it to 3rd and 1. They have an automatic first down. I think the spread is 7 right now. I'm starting to lean that way.
Yep, like I said earlier, the Eagles have covered all their spreads so far this season. I agree. I am liking that 7-point spread for them, especially at home. They're so great at home. But yeah, they haven't played their best football yet. Maybe we see it this week. I think they're going to just run all over this Commanders team, who hasn't been great in the run defense, despite having a really good front seven. I'm going to go with the Eagles, and Jalen Hurts. We'll see if he could have a game where he dominates the pass if the run isn't working. But like I said, I expect the run to be working. I expect this to be a short game, and I like the Eagles covering their 4th straight game.
I also got the Eagles, but kind of for different reasons. I don't think the run game is going to be as successful as the last couple of weeks, especially for DeAndre Swift with that really good front four that Washington has. I think Hurts is going to rely on A.J. Brown early in this game, especially on those shallow crossers, and just get him in space and let him go. They did it early last week, and it moved the chains quite often, and I think they do it again this week. I got Philly.
I just think the Eagles' defensive line is going to have a field day on the Commanders, and I don't think Sam Howell is going to have anything to combat it. I got the Eagles winning.
All right, moving on to Bengals at Titans. Before the Monday night games, I was just taking a peek at the week 4 games and just seeing what I liked and what I didn't like. And I wrote down before the Bengals game, I said, no matter what happens in this Bengals game, even if they get blown out by the Rams, take the Bengals no matter what against the Titans. So I'm going to be doing that. The Bengals didn't look great on Monday night, but they figured out a way to win. I'm really, really low on this Titans team. I think this Titans team could sneakily be one of the worst teams in the entire league. The only bright spot I like about this, like I literally hate every single thing about this team but Vrabel. So he's going to get them some wins because he's a great coach. But I don't know. It's going to be a tough path for the Titans this week.
Yeah, facing an offense like the Bengals with all the weapons that they have, the Titans cannot afford to go down early in this one because I talked about it for sure last week. If you go down early, if you're the Titans, it kind of takes Derrick Henry out of the game. And you cannot afford to lose your best player, at least your best offensive player, early in games. The Bengals, they have that big playability. They haven't shown it too much early in the season, but I think part of that's due to Joe Burrow not being 100%. But talked about it during the recap of the Bengals game earlier. If they feed Jamar and let him get into open space and maybe even take the top off the defense and a sick double move every once in a while, they're going to hit that. And it's going to be very tough to stop and keep up with if you're the Titans.
Yeah, I agree. The Titans' only hope to win this game is to get ahead early. That's the recipe to success every game, but that's what they have to do this game. The Bengals defensive line dominated against the Rams, and they get another below average offensive line, so that's definitely something to watch. And their offense looked better, but they need to get Joe Mixon involved more. And Jamar Chase, they need to keep both of them going and having a good game. I'm with you, Josh. I just don't like this roster at all. But the fact that they have Vrabel, one of the better coaches, it's going to win them the game. But then they have Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. And with the pressure on him, I think he's going to be forced into a turnover too.
Yeah, I actually disagree about the Derrick Henry point. I think Derrick Henry actually has a really good game this week. The Bengals they're tied for second to last in run defense through 3 weeks, rushing yards per game. They're at 151.7 rushing yards per game allowed. So it's going to be, like you said, Zach, they're going to have to stay in the game for Derrick Henry to have a great game. But the Bengals have started pretty slow on offense. So I could see a game where Derrick Henry gets going early. But overall, when they inevitably have to put the ball in Ryan Tannehill's hands, I don't think he can do it. I think he's going to get beat up when he does drop back. And I hope if I'm a Bengals fan, this is the game you want to go win in a blowout and show that you're not underperforming as much as people think.
I completely agree with that. I have Cincinnati for this one, but like you said, if Derrick Henry does get the ball early and often, it can really wear down this Bengals defense, who is not that great against the run, and especially with them having short rests coming off a Monday night game, we don't know exactly what Bengals defense we're going to see. But if Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, I've talked about it a million times, I'll talk about it a million times more. If they can get their connection going early and just make the Titans pay, I really don't have any issue taking the Bengals without batting an eye here.
Same. I agree. I don't have a problem taking the Bengals. I just don't like the Titans. The Bengals line is going to have to keep Joe Burrow untouched, but I just expect them to kind of do what they did last week with the quick passes. I think they just get the job done. They got a win under their belt. Now they can keep stacking them.
Yeah, it's blasphemy that the Chargers lost to this Titans team. But moving on to the Chargers, they play the Raiders in LA this week. My first note here we go again, a game that the Chargers should win. This is and I'm just looking at the fact that I picked the Chargers and I'm already thinking about it. But the Chargers defense just has to take this week to build off of having a decent game defensively last week against the Vikings, who like to get a lot of yards but not points. Fields kind of offense for them, but last season. But Staley just cannot have the Chargers shoot themselves in the foot. He needs to stop getting cute, and he needs to understand that his job is on the line. And any horrible mistake that's going to show up on all over social media because he went for a 4th and 1 on his own 25 and lost it is shit that's going to possibly get him fired. So he needs to just tone it down a bit, maybe play conservative for once, or I don't even know. But I want to see Brandon Staley not shoot the Chargers in the foot this week, and hopefully they could win for them. Hopefully they could win a division game.
Yeah, Chargers have to win this game in order to keep pace with the Chiefs, who were coming off a crazy win last week. We'll get to them later, though. The Raiders, if they want a chance to win this game, they're going to just have to pray the Chargers just charger or just feed Devontae. J.C. Jackson got benched. He was a healthy scratch last week, and I don't know if that was with the arrest warrant or not, but he hasn't been great since signing with the Chargers. I think this is going to be a huge Devontae Adams game, but this is also going to be a huge Justin Herbert game. He's been having great games every single game he's played in this season. Sure, he's 1-2, but I have him in my top 3 in the MVP rankings for myself. But this is going to be a really, really weird game because, Chargers, every single one of their games is, and we don't know we don't know if Jimmy G is going to be playing because of that concussion, right?
Yep. Still the protocol.
Right. So, I mean, if he plays and they feed Devontae, they might have a chance, but I don't know right now.
Yeah, he is in concussion protocol, so Brian Hoyer is their backup with AOC at the third one. I read the stat with Anthony Richardson last week. I think it's 60% of quarterbacks miss at least one game with concussion protocol, so it'll be interesting to see if
You say
is out of it.
80?
60.
60.
Oh, I was about to say that's wild, but still it's pretty wild stat.
Yeah. Touching on the Brandon Staley, I think you guys definitely remember Matt Nagy used to have on his play call sheet in the bottom left corner or something that said "BU." I think Brandon Staley needs one in his bottom right corner that says "Don't be you," and just be someone else.
Be anyone else.
Yeah, I have in my notes as well, Josh.
Not Flus though. He's terrible.
Yeah, where it's just I feel nervous every time I pick the Chargers because you just never know what team's going to show up. But especially if Brian Hoyer plays, if they lose this game, it's blasphemous. If the Raiders want any chance of winning, they're going to have to get the running game going with Josh Jacobs. They've yet to do that this year, but that's the recipe to the Raiders winning football games. So that's the main thing they have to do. If Hoyer plays, the Chargers just cannot lose this game.
I don't think they can lose this game even if Jimmy does play, which I don't think he will. It does kind of seem like they're leaning towards having Hoyer or maybe AOC. The Raiders are going to be one of those teams who are probably one of the worst teams in the league, but they're going to just end up staying in games because they have the star power, especially with Devontae Adams and Max Crosby. Max Crosby is tied with Aiden Hutchinson for the most pressure so far through 3 weeks at 19. So he might be one under. I think it's TJ Watt's tied with 19, but he's right under them. So he's been phenomenal as he should be. And I don't know, this is a 5.5 point spread for the Chargers. I think they, in theory, especially if Hoyer plays, they should win by more than a touchdown. I'm going to go with the Chargers reluctantly.
I got the Chargers as well. I mean, I picked them last week and it worked out. Sure, Staley was trying to lose the game with that fourth down call. Jeez, can't talk. But Vegas, they have the star power to stay in games, like you guys mentioned. If Josh Jacobs can finally find his stride and just keep going, especially against this lack of a run defense that the Chargers have, and then bounce back on play action, regardless of who the quarterback is, and just feed Devontae, they could stay in this. So that 5.5 point spread I think you mentioned, it kind of seems like a trap to me, but I got the Chargers regardless.
This is a battle of just two coaches trying to see who can be worse at managing a game. I don't know which one comes out on top, but the Chargers, I just can't see a world where they lose this game, especially if Brian Hoyer is quarterback. Going with Staley and the Chargers, I guess.
If we had a bozo coaches ranking, do you think both these guys are in the top 5?
They're top. This is 1 and 2. I think.
Yeah, it might
really?
Be
wow.
I'm trying to think of who else would be in
just
there.
Just with the fact of managing the game, they're 1 and 2.
Yeah, they're definitely there. They're Dan Campbell minus not McDaniels. Staley is Dan Campbell minus the juice. He is just he tries to get cute with it, but we'll see. All right, moving on here. Cardinals at Niners. Although Arizona has been playing really well, I think that comes to an end here. Their defense has been playing super well, and maybe they're able to shut Brock Purdy down a couple times because we've seen that he is in spurts struggled. Overall, he's been fine. I expect the Niners to just dominate every single facet of this game, and they should win very easily. They're 14-point favorites.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Arizona, they don't have the talent to keep up with this absolute juggernaut of a San Francisco team. I don't have much to say about this game just because of how one-sided it seems. But then again, I thought that last week with Dallas and Arizona. So you never know. Maybe the only reason Arizona is in a game like this is if San Francisco, like I mentioned last episode, they overlook them a little bit. But I don't see that happening, especially with that Arizona won last week because of a potential overlook. So San Francisco, I think, is going to be locked in, and I have San Francisco winning this game.
Yeah, each week I feel like there's just two teams where we know what we're going to get watching them and preparing for it, and that's the 49ers and the Eagles. I feel like both teams obviously have a great defense. The 49ers are just a different animal than the Cowboys at this point. I think they're just better coached. Kyle Shanahan, I've said it multiple times, I think he's the best coach in the league. I think Purdy remains unbeaten in the regular season. He's 11-0 right now. But Josh Dobbs has been a pleasant surprise so far for the Cardinals. He's incredibly smart. He's looked great for what they were expecting. And trading for him was a very interesting thing in the offseason. But I saw it online. They got a smart quarterback to maybe try to just evaluate their offense and what they really need. I think they're still locked in on Kyler Murray. That's just my opinion. I think when Kyler comes back, I think he's going to play and be all right, and they might sneakily win some games. But
I agree.
they're playing the 49ers this week, and I don't see that.
Yeah, like you said with the Niners and Eagles, that's two teams who have really just done their job. Both teams who should be 3-0 on covers. Shout out Sean McVay. But I love the Niners. I'm easily picking the Niners here. I think they easily cruise to 4-0. The Cardinals coming off of a big win like that, I think that's where we kind of set them up, where they go from a big home win against one of the best teams in the league to having to go and play at San Francisco. I think this is a tough game for the Niners. I don't know how well our audience knows like that kind of the history of NFL betting odds, but it's pretty rare to see a 14-point favorite. That's really only when you have like one of the worst versus one of the best teams. Even the Bears Chiefs last week was only 12.5. So this game, Vegas thinks the Niners are going to blow them out. I think the Niners are also going to blow them out.
I mean, I picked San Francisco. I said my piece, so I kind of want to use my time to talk about something I saw on Twitter earlier today. What do we think the Cardinals' record is if Kyler has played these first few games?
3-0.
Think 3-0?
3-0.
I mean, it's I feel like 2-1. I just don't think 3-0. It just doesn't make sense. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think they win that Giants game, but I don't know. It just that Cowboys game, I feel like people are blowing that a little out of proportion, in my opinion.
The Cardinals are just such a big question mark. I'm obviously a Phoenix Suns fan, as you've seen in the back here and most of the videos. So I have I'm on Arizona Cardinals Twitter by default, and it's just a lot of mixed reactions. There's some people that are like, why the hell are we staying in these games and winning? We're trying to get Caleb Williams. And then there's some people who are like, we have the team, and we once we get Kyler back, it's not like we're fully rebuilding. We have some pieces on our team that we could work with. So it's overall just a pretty split fan base, and I have no idea what's going to happen with the Cardinals this season.
I mean, as long as they're staying out of that Caleb Williams race for my Bears' sake, I'm good.
Yeah, and I have the 49ers winning as well. I think there's a chance Gannon brings the juice and they stay in this game a little bit, but
fire in your gut.
They don't have enough to stop the 49ers offense, and I don't think they have enough to do anything against the 49ers defense. So I got the 49ers winning.
All right, moving on. Next game here, Pats at Cowboys. This Patriots team is pretty scrappy, and honestly, I could see them making this an interesting game. We saw the Cowboys let the I was going to say they let the Cardinals stay in it. They let the Cardinals beat them by double digits last week. I think the Pats will struggle pretty mightily on offense. This Cowboys defense, I expect them to have a bounce back game, especially with the not super talented Pats offense in general. Mac Jones has been pretty good, but the weapons aren't fantastic. The Cowboys should just be pretty mad after last week. They should go into this game pissed off and trying to blow out a Pats team, especially at home.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I think the Cowboys are going to come into this game fuming that they lost to a team like Arizona. Sure, we may be talking about Arizona like, oh, they might have a little something here. And especially when they get Kyler back, they could be a little something more. But honestly, Cowboys, they were way better than the Cardinals. They knew that. And they're upset. They're definitely going to come into this game really upset that they lost. And they're going to try and kill the Patriots. They don't have that talented of an offense. And I don't think they're going to feel the loss of Trayvon Diggs too much in this game in particular. So Gilmore's going to have a solid game himself, but I think the Cowboys are in a really good spot to bounce back here.
The Cowboys gave up 222 rushing yards to the Cardinals, and that's really what the Patriots want to do. And they have this running back named Ezekiel Elliott back at home. Maybe a revenge game for Ezekiel Elliott, but I think Ramondre Stevenson will get the bulk of the carries. I can see the Pats, like you said, Josh, they're a scrap team. I can see them staying in this game and maybe winning it with how the Cowboys' run defense looked last week. Christian Gonzalez has looked like the real deal so far, and a matchup with CeeDee Lamb is going to be very interesting to see. The Cowboys are going to have to clean it up because we know how good of a coach Belichick is, and he's going to see what the Cardinals did and he's going to do as much of that as he can to try to shut down this potent Cowboys offense.
Yep, the Cowboys are going to have to run the ball well. They've run the ball pretty well with Pollard early. They're, like we've said on here many times, Belichick goes out and he shuts down your number one option. I don't expect to have a big game from CeeDee Lamb here. Honestly, if this game was in Foxborough, I think I pick the Pats. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I think they're just a more talented team, and I think we're going to see a similar to last week. We're going to see the New England offense struggle. They're going to have to establish the run, like you said, Mike. I think this is going to be a pretty good game in a battle of two really toxic fan bases. Cowboys, though, is my pick. I don't know if I said that.
I got Dallas as well, but simply for the fact that Dallas is better than New England, and they're pissed that they lost a game that they shouldn't have lost last week. New England barely beat the Jets, while Dallas blew out the Jets when they played them. So I think Dallas easily wins this one.
I think whoever gets up early in this game is going to win it. I think they're going to use their run game to win it. And whoever gets behind, I think the quarterback is going to be forced into some turnovers. This is a tough game. I really don't know who to pick. I'm leaning Cowboys to win it, but I think the Patriots would cover. I think it's a 7-point spread right now. I think the Patriots would cover that.
I like that as well. Moving on, though, speaking of the Jets, Chiefs at Jets in primetime Sunday Night Football. My God, I wish we could just flex already. I know you can't start flexing until week 5, I believe, but sadly, we got to deal with a game that was going to be a good game, and now it is not going to be. The Jets did sign Trevor Siemian today. Maybe at some point in the season he gets looks if they decide to go bench Zach Wilson. Hopefully Mahomes is healthy. I saw he was a little bit banged up last week. He got to sit out the second half of the game because it was 1-0. But they're playing a great defense in the Jets, and we'll see if the Jets can maybe keep them in this game. The Chiefs got to have that bounce back week after struggling week 1 and week 2 on offense. And now they got to face one of the best defenses in the league. So we'll see if Mahomes can flex his muscles a little bit on him.
I don't think this is going to be a particularly high-scoring game, though I do think the Chiefs are going to move the ball quite a bit. I think the Jets are going to have to play a bend but don't break type of play style and just pray they get a takeover, or not a takeover, a takeaway or two. But Kansas City's defense, they're playing really well to start the year, way better than I would have imagined. And we mentioned last pod, they're the youngest defense in the league, and they've got so much room to improve, especially in the secondary, and they've been playing great so far. So I imagine that Garrett Wilson, he has yet another quiet game just strictly because of the guy throwing him the ball. Get him out of there. So it's an unfortunate thing to see that this game had, like you said, Josh, so much potential, but it kind of went downhill after week 1.
We have never got the chance to see Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes matchup. I think it was scheduled 3 times, and Mahomes missed the first one, Rodgers missed the second one. Now Rodgers missed this one, so we might never get the chance to see the 2 most talented quarterbacks possibly of all time go against each other. But Zach Wilson obviously is stepping in for the Jets. Obviously, clearly he hasn't played very good, but to cut him some slack, he hasn't really had a chance to go against an easy defense so far. I mean, he's gone against the Bills, great defense, the Cowboys, great defense, and the Patriots, another great defense. So he hasn't really had the chance to kind of just get into touch, and now he goes against the Chiefs, which have their defense has been pleasantly surprising so far. Chris Jones, I think, is going to dominate against this Jets offensive line. And Zach and I touch on it every week. We just feel bad for Garrett Wilson, man. He's so talented and just hasn't really had the chance. Big storyline, though, will Taylor Swift turn out to the game at MetLife for Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, I know she doesn't get back on tour. I was just scrolling TikTok before this, so I saw she doesn't go back on tour till October 18th. So I guess we'll see if she's at this one. I guess she's like on a break or something. I don't know. But like you said, Zach Wilson faced 3 really good defenses to start this game out, or to start the season out, and he faces a 4th one this week. I see this as a game where the Chiefs end up in the mid-20s and the Jets end up in single digits. I got the Chiefs pretty easily and probably a pretty boring game on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, unfortunately, it will be a really boring game. I believe I have the Chiefs. Let me pull up my notes here. Yeah, I got the Chiefs. Yeah, I got the Chiefs. You gotta give some suspense here. But I got the Chiefs. Mahomes is just he's going to overcome a really good defense, and Zach Wilson will not be able to overcome a really good defense. Say it a million times. Say it one more time. Free Garrett Wilson. I got the Chiefs.
Yeah, Mahomes has only been sacked 1 time so far this year. So the Jets are going to have to get to him if they even want a chance. We say that every time. I have the Chiefs winning, but I was just peeking at the Jets' schedule, seeing the good defenses that they have to face. They do have the Broncos next week, which isn't an awful one, but then they have the Eagles and the Giants right after that. So the defenses just keep coming at Zach Wilson, and I don't know if he'll be the quarterback much longer.
Yeah,
But I have the Chiefs winning.
Yep, we will see if he is. Maybe he
It's
puts up
definitely
71.
definitely something to keep track of for sure.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to the only Monday Night Football game this week. Seahawks at Giants. The Giants' trenches just have not been good at all. They haven't been getting much pressure at all. Like I said, Tibbs has been pretty poor to start the season. The O-line has struggled. They've been beat up. Once again, I don't know if Andrew Thomas is playing. They need him to play because Evan Neal's going to play, and he's going to just suck once again. The Seahawks do not have a fantastic defense. As we've seen, their defense has been pretty underwhelming through the first 3 weeks. But lucky for them, without Saquon, the Giants just look absolutely lost on offense as a whole. And if I'm a Giants fan, I'm probably pushing the panic button at this point. Yeah, especially if they lose this week.
I mean, I don't picture them having a chance this week, especially if Saquon doesn't play. They have no answers if they don't have him on the field. And their defense, they haven't been able to get any pressure, like you mentioned, and they haven't gotten any push with the offensive line, regardless of health or anything. Daniel Jones, I've talked about it my entire life, not really, but really just the entire offseason. He's overpaid, and with the team he has around him, he's not going to be able to do much. And with paying him that much, you can't get that good of a team around him. So I don't see any way that the Giants can really make this close, especially with Saquon out. Seahawks, I think they're really going to be able to move the ball as much as they want against this Giants defense. They're kind of inexperienced in the secondary, and they have 3 really good receivers and Gino, who is kind of finding his rhythm in this season. So I have the Seahawks for this one.
Yeah, this feels like a 3:15 Fox game. I don't really know why they picked this game for Sunday or Monday Night Football, but the big question mark is if Saquon plays or not. I think he's listed at day-to-day right now, but no matter what, he's not practicing till Thursday. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays or not. I can see this being a boring game. I can see it kind of just being a defensive battle where neither team can really get much going on offense, but the Seahawks have a better offense. So I think that's going to help. They clearly have 3 great weapons in JSN, Tyler Lockett, and DK, and then Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet in the backfield. I don't know if the Giants can really – I just don't see the Giants outscoring them. And after watching Daniel Jones last week in primetime, a couple overthrows, couldn't hit Waller, who is basically the LeBron James of football. I see it's a tough game to pick.
Yeah, it wasn't that tough for me. I don't think Saquon's playing in this game. And the Giants, if they don't have Saquon, they're not going to be very many teams in this league, and they play the Dolphins and the Bills the next 2 weeks. So for their sake, they need to get him back. The Giants are just going to need stops to win this game because I think their offense is going to struggle overall. The Seahawks need to just not play down to their opponent like they have been so far. They need to get ahead early and just run the damn ball. K9 and Charbonnet should both have outstanding games. The Giants' run defense is 29th in the league so far. They've given up 138 rushing yards per game. I expect big games from both of them, and I think the Seahawks win.
Yeah, said it before, got the Seahawks, but Seattle's definitely going to have to run the ball really well, which, like you said, Josh, they probably will. Giants aren't that scary up front, especially this year. They've got the talent. They just haven't produced it all. And on the other side of the ball, Seattle, I don't know if they're going to get a million stops this game. They're not going to keep the Giants to single-digit points, but there's no, like you touched on, Mike, there's no way they're going to keep up with Seattle offensively. So I got Seattle.
Yeah, and I got Seattle as well. I think Kenneth Walker is going to have another great game. Charbonnet might steal a touchdown or 2, probably just 1, but I think Kenneth Walker, I think Geno Smith will control the ball, limit turnovers, and I see the Seahawks winning this one.
All right, so that does it for our picks for week 4. To update everybody on the standings, I am 33-15 through 3 weeks. Zach is 32-16, and Mike is 29-19. So it's still a pretty tight race as we progress in the season. Now we're going to go with a few betting picks, as we always do, to end off these week previews. The two that I like, I love the Lions -1.5. I've been saying it all week. I think they're going to bully the Packers and win by more than 7 points. So 1.5, I think, is kind of a steal for the Lions here. And then I'm actually going to go with Bills -3. I think the public is very high on the Dolphins. The Dolphins are going to be a very popular pick, especially on the money line, being underdogs in this game. And that tells me to fade the public here. I think the Bills' defense is overall just better. And they're going to be able to slow down to an extent this Dolphins offense. And I could see this game being like 33-27, somewhere in that range.
For me, I've got two picks. I've got the Minnesota Vikings -3.5. I think their offense is going to explode this week against a secondary who really has no one to cover all their weapons. And for my second pick, I've got the Bengals -2.5. We talked about it honestly all season, especially since week 1. The Titans, they just don't have a lot of talent on their roster. They can't score a lot of points. I think the Bengals score more than enough to cover and maybe even just win by double digits as well.
Yeah. Two things I just wanted to say real quick. Usher is performing at halftime of the Super Bowl. So interesting choice, but it is what it is. And then rest in peace to Brooks Robinson. He's a Baltimore legend, played for the Orioles, a great baseball player. But the two picks I have, Zach actually stole one of mine. I got Bengals -2. No, he's fine. I also have Bengals -2.5. And then my other pick, I said the Cowboys are winning, but I think the Patriots keep within 7 points. I have Patriots, I think it's +7.
I believe it is 7.
Yeah, +7.
In Dallas. Yeah, touching off the Usher thing, I'm super excited for it. I love Usher. He has just a catalog of hits. And in a 15 to 20 minute halftime show, he's just going to be able to go hit after hit after hit after hit.
It's going to be a good one.
I'm super excited for it.
He has to play the hits though.
He's going to play the hits. It's the halftime show.
He 100% will.
He's absolutely.
Do we think it's beating Rihanna's from last year?
No, but Rihanna's was amazing. That's a high bar. I think it's going to be really, really good though. But that does it for episode 11 here of the Engage 8 podcast. Once again, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow the socials, which are, as always, in the description and the channel description as well. And then we will be back during Sunday Night Football, recording episode 12, which will be the Week 4 recap. So we will see everyone in the next one, and peace.